everyone. I'm Parikshit Singh, and it's my distinct pleasure to be here with Partho, whom we lovingly call Partho Dada. Please excuse me if I use that term. And he's going to talk about something that most of us have no idea about, although we hear the term quite often. It's bandied about, thrown around so easily, and yet most Indians, and of course the world, has no idea what that word means. So Vedanta, you talk about Vedanta. What is Vedanta, and can we have some understanding of it if an understanding is possible?
So Vedanta, if we break up the word, comes from two root words in Sanskrit, Veda and Anta. So Veda is the process of knowing knowledge itself and the sources of knowledge, all that put together is Veda. Veda is also, in the active sense, it's to know, from the root word vid. Anta is, it can be understood as end of a process. It can be understood as the consummation of a process, the final fulfillment of a process. So Vedanta is the final fulfillment of all knowledge and all knowing in the knower. So when your attention moves from knowing and knowledge, where there's always this subject-object duality, because there is always the knower and the known. So when you move from that to just the knower, and the known merges with the knower, and what remains at the end is the knower alone, the self, then you've come to Vedanta. And the simplest I can make it.
So you said Veda is to know, and Ant is the end.
The end or the peak.
Peak of knowing.
The peak of knowing.
And it comes back to the one who is looking to know.
Yes, the knower.
And you have put a line somewhere that Vedanta is the knower, which is confounding, confuses a lot. Because is it a technique? Is it a philosophy? Is it a thought process? What is it?
What I have written in the book is Vedanta is not so much concerned about knowledge, but about the knower. So our whole life is spent in knowing. We want to know everything, from the simple fact that I want to know your name and what you do, to I want to know what is happening here and what is this all about, to I want to know the universe and I want to know myself. So there's always this process of knowing. And in a very fundamental way, we are what we know. If you take our knowledge away from us, we are gone. Our identity is knowledge, what we know.
Right.
But that's only one aspect of our existence. The other one, which is far more important, in fact, without that, this aspect will make no sense, is the knower, the one who wants to know, the one who accumulates knowledge, the one who gains knowledge and experience. So who is the experiencer? Who is the knower? When you begin to ask that question, then you begin to penetrate the many layers and veils of outer knowledge and move into the domains of what's called inner knowledge, antarjnana. And that finally brings you to the knower, where all knowledge drops off. Then you don't need to know about anything. In the sense, this is also an important point, in the sense that the universe that you want to know is no longer an object for you, it's no longer outside. Then the universe has become you itself. So you know the universe as you know yourself, direct inner knowledge. It's called knowledge by identity.
So there's no universe outside?
Finally, yes, there is no universe outside.
Because if you go back to the knower is the one who's knowing the universe anyway.
Yes. And then of course we'll have to go into the whole process of knowing, which probably is not...
I want to address that because this Vedanta can be very simple and can be very confusing. So you have in this book talked about bhakti and prem. Traditional Vedanta, as we know, as we read about, is very serious, and you sit down and meditate like someone like Maharshi Ramana or even Swami Vivekananda. So, how did you bring bhakti and love in Vedanta? Because then, is it really Vedanta if it is full of love?
Interesting question. So then let me tell you how this book came about, Somewhere Among the Stars. Somewhere Among the Stars is the story of a woman, a woman mystic, Ahana. And though the name Ahana is fictional, the person Ahana is real. The story is the story of an actual mystic who lived in Almora, near Almora for many years, lived in the Himalayas for many years. And uh, every experience that has been recounted in this book is her experience. So when I wrote this, I was not really writing about Vedanta, I was writing about a Vedanti. There's a lot of difference in that. So when you're writing about Vedanta, then there is a system, yes. There is a school of thought, a system, called Vedanta.
Yes.
And Vedanta is this and Vedanta is that. But when you're talking about a Vedanti, one who not just practices Vedanta, but is living Vedanta, a person who is the living expression and embodiment of Vedanta, then questions like what is this Vedanta and what is this Vedanta drops off. It's no longer relevant. What is relevant is what you're seeing before you, what you're experiencing, and what this person is living moment to moment.
So let me come back to that. So you have Maharshi Ramana
Yes.
as a Vedanti. We have Swami Vivekananda as a Vedanti. Maharshi Raman is quiet, gentle, loving, kind, absolutely an ascetic. Swami Vivekananda is roaring like a lion and standing up for the country.
Yes.
and Hindutva and Hinduism, and without any parochialism. And you have someone like a Nisargadatta Maharaj who used to sell beedis and was running a business. And then you have someone, if we go back to the old texts or scriptures, you have someone like a Sri Krishna whose Vedanta is all encompassing. Which one is Vedanta?
All of them. All of them, because Vedanta is everything. It's all inclusive. It doesn't leave out anything. If see, very simply, Vedanta, what is the, if we have to talk in terms of a principal teaching of Vedanta, what is that? The principal teaching of Vedanta in us, if we have to summarize that very simply, is this: there is only one reality. Only one reality. This one reality manifests itself, expresses itself in a myriad ways, in infinite dimensions of being. So, if that is Vedanta, and I'm not adding anything to the simplest definition of Vedanta, if that is Vedanta, then what is it that we can leave out of Vedanta? Or who is it that we can leave out of Vedanta? It's all encompassing.
But traditionally, hasn't Vedanta become identified with the concept that this is all an illusion, this is all Maya, and we should shun it? If Vedanta encompasses everything, how can you have Maya?
So that is just an aspect of the whole thing called Vedanta. And Maya itself is, if we were to talk about Maya, we'll have to extend this session by at least a couple of hours. Maya itself is a very Mahic term to understand. I mean, it's not easy to understand Maya. And understanding Maya as illusion is perhaps the most simplistic way of doing it, and therefore incomplete.
Okay, so
very simply stated,
yes.
In Vedanta, Maya is that which can be measured,
Okay.
or which is measured. So that which cannot be measured, the immeasurable, is the real. So when the real, which is immeasurable, therefore beyond Maya, expresses itself or manifests itself in myriad forms, it also necessarily makes itself measurable, because that which is not measurable is not experienceable.
Yes.
So for me to experience myself as a form and a personality, I have to limit myself. And that the moment I limit that which is limitless, I have come to measurement. That is Maya. Very difficult to understand, really.
So why should we shun it if we
No,
can
nothing
measure
is to be shunned.
It is not to be shunned.
Nothing is to be shunned. But see, again, all this that you have, all people sitting there, this place, the air that you're feeling and breathing, it's. Do you think it's really out there? You're a physician, you're a doctor, scientist. What does your science say? Is this all out there? Where is it happening?
I want to come to that. You're not supposed to question me. I'm supposed to question you. So, but I will come to that. I want to come to that. Yes. So your book is, to my mind, one of the most beautiful, simplest expressions of Vedanta. But you have put it in a fiction. And to me, it didn't seem like fiction at all. It seemed more real than fiction. So should we really call it fiction, or?
In the book itself, it's called a fictionalized account. So there's a fictionalization, and that too is discussed in the book, which gives the author a poetic license, if I may say,
Okay.
To not to limit himself to a particular line of thinking or expression.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was...
And another important thing is that if people read this as a biography, then there is that attitude that in biography means it is real and this has actually happened, and then all
Right.
kinds of questions come out. Can this happen? Can this?
Right.
If it's fiction, no one bothers. I mean, anything can happen.
But it's not fiction from one narrative. You have multiple narratives here. You have multiple timelines. You have layers within layers.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm following one person, and that one person is dreaming of another level. In a way, it's a brilliant technique with put in the highest form, where the form is beginning to merge with the content. But you have turned time on itself, and you have created a cycle within cycles within cycle format. And to me, it brought home to me what you're talking about. So I know we are watching time right now. We have only 30 minutes, and this is a very important thing that comes up. What is time?
So, I don't know what is time. Actually, I don't know anyone who knows what is time. The Vedanti will say there is no such thing as time. What you're seeing there is a measurement,
Yes.
that which by itself is immeasurable.
So that's Maya. We're measuring it.
In a way, that's Maya.
Okay.
Because it says 30 minutes, but 30 minutes means nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, by the watch, 30 minutes means a certain duration.
Yes.
But a certain duration of what? It's very arbitrary. I mean,
Yes.
you get up in the morning and say good morning, but which means what?
Yes.
It's actually, when we say time, when we look at time, we're looking at motion. It's
Yes.
the movement of the sun and the earth in relation with one another. If that is not there, there is no such thing as time. So that takes you to, let's say, the only understandable concept of time is in physics, which is a certain measure of degradation, entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, the arrow of time. Perhaps that is the only context in which time makes some sense. But then that itself is a very limited, that itself is Maya again. It's measuring something which by itself is not measurable.
Absolutely. It's totally arbitrary.
Yes.
There are different calendars.
Yeah.
We figure out, why should it be 60 minutes? Why should it be 60
yes,
seconds?
It's arbitrary,
Who
conventional,
decided?
yes.
Who decided this is winter and this is... So I understand that.
Yeah.
And quantum physics time does not factor in any quantum physics equation.
Yeah.
So it can move, particles can move backward, forward. To some extent, your book reads like great quantum physics, like science fiction of a spiritual dimension. Would that be a correct characterization?
So once again, I never thought of the narrative, and I never thought of a technique. I listened to Ahana's story,
Yes.
and I documented it and presented it more or less in her own words. Much of the text in the book is actually her own words. It's directly recounted by Ahana. Much of it, of course, I have put in as an author. But this is Ahana's story. So she experienced time in the way it's described in the book.
And it's brilliant.
Yeah, and when I myself was hearing the first-hand account of this, it was very difficult for me to comprehend the nature of time, because here I'm listening to a person who's talking about time as in multiple dimensions simultaneously.
Right.
And I can't get it here. And I say, what's happening? But then because it's a mystic who is experiencing all this, living all this, you don't question. Then you don't question, is that real or how it's happening? Obviously it's real because she's living it. The only question perhaps you can ask is it something that's happening just in her own mind? Therefore she's in a certain sense crazy. And in a so-called objective universe, there is time, there is movement, there is entropy. So does that happen? But then again, I asked her this question once, and I still remember what she said, that how much do we know? How much does your physics know, really?
So we have established that time does not exist. So
no,
okay, we can
time
go on forever.
as we measure it does not exist.
Time as we measure it does not exist. But there's some changes happening all the time.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes.
And so change is happening, and we give it a tag of certain seconds and minutes and hours, right? Are we together on this?
Yes. So a micro movement of the planet around the sun is what it's shown here as chronological time.
Right, but we have given it a tag. There was no...
Yes, but there is an actual movement. So if you measure that movement along a certain axis, you will get time.
Okay. So let's talk about this, because time is closely related to identity, right? When you're sleeping, technically there's no time. We are not registering time. And it has a lot to do with our identity. We have identified ourselves with time. In this book, you have used a pseudonym. You've used someone else's name. And I know you did not want us to talk about your name. You wanted it to be anonymous. And we had to pull you here on the stage, dragging, screaming. Why is it important to you that your name be not associated with this book? Or was it important?
Difficult question to answer. I mean, I haven't asked this. Those who know I've written the book have asked me, why not in your own name?
Yes.
There's a part of that in the story itself. When the author, who's still to become the author, is wanting to write Ahana's story, he also gets this inspiration to ask for a name. You know, in the yogic Vedanta tradition, the guru gives you a name. It's very common.
Yes.
You know, and it's symbolic of giving up your old identity based on the ignorance and assuming a new name, because a name is identity, nama, rupa.
Yes.
So you assume a new name, along with it you assume a new life and personality and start living that from that point on. So that's the whole traditional meaning of the guru giving you a name. So he asks for a name from Ahana, that you give me a name and I will use that name to write. And she gives him a name. Varuni is a name that comes to Ahana, and she gives that name to him and says, let this be your name.
Yes.
And he says from this point on, whatever I write on Vedanta will be written in this name. So it's a mark of respect to one who the author considers to be his guru, his first guru in Vedanta, and he keeps that name. So for me to do that it was an important inner gesture to the one to whom I owe everything that I've learned about Vedanta to begin with. So if I use the name Adi Varuni and then to tell the world that it's me who's written it, it doesn't make sense and it's not relevant. Name and personality, if you go deeper into Vedanta, amongst the first things you realize is name and personality themselves are irrelevant. Not relevant.
So time as we measure it is incorrect. Name as we call it is not the real thing.
No.
So what is there then?
That which is aware of it all. The knower is the real. And the knower is not confined to one person or one form. The knower is universal, cosmic. Cosmos is the knower. I always ask this question, and this was the first question that I was asked myself by my guru, that can the known be the known without the knower? Very deep question. Can all this, where is all this really happening? All this is a reality in perception, in observation. If the observer is not there, there is no reality.
Yes.
So I still remember I asked, but this one person who's observing, now I go to sleep, does that mean the world disappears? So that's the fine point of Vedanta, that the knower does not exist in one form. Wherever there is life, there is the knower. Each one of you sitting there has a knower. Each one of us here knows what's happening right now because there is a knower within. That knower knows all this is happening.
Right.
Now, if I can say the knower here is different from the knower there,
right.
But is it so? The difference lies in the way we have defined personality, described personality. Right. Now, if you take away all those outer descriptions of personality, where I was born and in which family, in which society or culture I was born, what kind of education I received, all that,
right.
If you remove, because these are not non-real, you take away my education, I still am what I am.
Right.
You take away my qualifications, my job that I do, the family that I have, take all that away. I still am what I am. I can lose my memory I can lose all my memory and therefore all my identity. I still am what I am. I can still know. So when we come to that knower within, is there any difference between that knower here and that knower there and that knower there and that knower there? None. It's the same knowing. In fact, some Vedantis don't even use the word knower. They say it's knowing. It's that one single supra-cosmic knowing manifesting itself in myriad forms and names.
See, so the way we were brought up in school, we were given an identity. It was important to protect that identity, and I had to learn, I had to score high marks, I had to gain and get awards, and to strengthen the identity again and again. What you're trying to do is slowly taking away things from it that are not there.
Yes. Stripping away the non-real, non-relevant layers of identity, which creates all the differences.
So if I stop clinging to this name, this tag that has been put on me, this identity that is given to me, then you think things will start opening up?
Yes, that's when, if I don't have a personality to refer to as myself, then what will I defend within myself?
Yeah.
Who here can offend me? Who can question me? What's there then? I have nothing to defend anymore.
And
I take this off and you don't know who I am and I don't know who you are.
So you take off what is called the Nam Rupa.
The Nam Rupa.
Each has been given a Nam, but if you remove the Nam, which is arbitrary,
right,
then suddenly something new appears.
Absolutely, yes.
And then,
so then you just have the Rupa, the form.
Right.
Now, look at the form. The form itself is another Maya.
Okay.
Because it's because we know physics, but we cannot experience physics directly. But suppose you were experiencing physics directly as you sit here. Will you really see all these forms sitting there? Or will you just see molecular configurations? and not just molecular configurations. You will see, if you have a finer vision, subtler vision, you'll see atomic configurations, nucleic formations, configurations. Then you'll finally see just quantum field, just pulsating quantum field without space or time. So what are we looking at? When I say that I'm looking at a form, it's just let me use the word, the illusion of the senses. And why am I seeing all these forms, including this form, is because I am looking at all this at a very narrow band of electromagnetic radiation. It's a very narrow band that we call visible light.
Yes.
And I'm seeing all this in visible light. So I'm seeing certain forms, a beautiful form, a not so beautiful form, a familiar form, not so familiar form, etc., etc. But if you just take me from the visible light band of the electromagnetic spectrum and you move me towards, let's say, the infrared end of the spectrum, what will I see? What forms will I see? What universe would I see? An infrared universe.
So hold on, before I go infrared on you. So I remove the name tags, including this name tag. And so all I see is forms and movement.
Yes. All you perceive is form and movement.
And let me correct that. All is perceived is form and movement, because I'm saying I am seeing it.
Only in a certain band of knowing, let's call it.
Right.
There are other bands of knowing.
Let's do this band first. Okay. I don't want to bandy that around. Let's just talk about this form. So we have removed the name, we've removed tags, even including this tag, and now I'm all seeing forms and movement, and people are walking out and people are walking in. Sorry, movement happening, right?
Yes.
Now what?
So, movement and form.
Movement and form.
Rupa and Gati.
Rupa and Gati.
The entire universe is that. Rupa and Gati.
Yes.
Nothing more.
Including this.
Nothing less.
Everything is happening.
Now, who is aware? Who's conscious of movement and form?
There is no who, because the who you have taken away.
The identity who's taken away. What? Very right.
Right.
In Vedanta, we don't use the word who, we use the word what.
Okay.
The question, who am I, is replaced by what am I.
Right.
So, if you take away all that, if you're mentally with me so far, which you are, and you take away all these layers of identity, what you're left with finally, the distilled residue of it all, it's just a consciousness of movement and form, right?
Yes.
So the I is not, Partho is not the I, Adi Varuni is not the I, this body is not the I. The I is that consciousness which knows all this and yet knows more than all this and goes beyond all this. That consciousness is the I, the real I. The other I's we have already stripped away.
Yeah, so the individualized, the one, the ego, what we call ego, but so I want to talk about that ego. And
so ego is still the identification with your narrative, your personal biography, that I am so-and-so, born at such and such a place, and I grew up at this time, and I've learned all this, and I had this relationship, and I've had that, etc. Your whole personal narrative is what you really are.
Right.
If I take away, as often happens in amnesia,
right.
When you lose memory, you lose identity. People ask, who are you? I don't know who I am. Where am I? Who am I? You ask profound philosophical questions because you have lost your memory. So, the personality that we are identified with is just the surface, superficial, and therefore constantly mutable.
Yes.
But that which is constantly aware of this mutable is the one that does not change itself.
So how can I experience it?
So you are it.
No, I want to do it.
So here we come to a very fine point of Vedanta here.
Yes.
And that is that what is experience? I can only experience something which is outside of myself. You need an experiencer, and you need an object of experience, that which I'm experiencing. Subject objectivality.
Yes.
Which means whatever I am experiencing is necessarily outside of myself and therefore not myself. Simple. Logic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if you were to take away everything of which I'm conscious, does that mean that I'm gone too?
That's what I'm trying to find.
So that's why we have to meditate, to come to that point where everything that I'm experiencing on a moment-to-moment basis is taken away. And then the person who's doing this meditation, person in inverted commas, experiences directly that which is conscious of it all, without the object of consciousness. In Vedanta we call it nirvikalpa. There is no object of consciousness, yet there is perfect consciousness, unchanging, immutable consciousness. Space, time has disappeared. You've sort of come to a zone where all knowing and all knowledge has collapsed. What remains? The knower.
So is that similar to what we used to read in the old days, the I amness, or whatever the amness?
Yes. That's a way of, see, now, if you come to this point,
yes,
we are together.
Yes, I've gone beyond the point, but...
Right, so if we have come to this point where only the consciousness remains and nothing else, it's extremely difficult to describe it to yourself or to anyone else. If someone were to somehow hypothetically come to you at that moment and say, now describe to me what you are, you won't be able to do that. Because where is your reference point? Where's your frame of reference? Everything's gone. So it's just consciousness. So then you need to invent terms to be able to, when you come back again into manifest reality and to tell people that, you know, I've been there. If you need to say it, actually don't. But
that's why I don't say it.
Yeah, if you need to write about it, let's say, or need to, you know, I'm fond of that person, so I want him or her also to realize that. Therefore, I have to express something.
Yes.
So if I have to express something, how do I do it? So then we use terms like I am, I amness, aham tattva.
Right.
These are all terms that you use. Finally, all these terms either mean something or they don't at all.
Because words too are arbitrary, aren't they?
Complete. Language itself is arbitrary.
Just like time is a tag, names,
language
words
is
are not really describing. Words are dualistic. You have something there, you're assigning, you've given it a name. But when I say that tree is...
But it's just name. We call it nominal knowledge in Vedanta.
Right.
Nam Roop Gyan only.
Right.
What it means is I'm saying that's the leaf, the tree there.
Right.
But I don't know if that's the tree. How do you know that's tree?
Because we just gave a name to it and we just...
Yeah, and also because you're seeing it in only one small band.
Yes.
If you were to look at it from a cosmic or a quantum perspective, how do you know where the tree begins and where the tree ends, and where the grass begins and where the grass ends, and where the sky begins and where the sky ends? It's all beginningless and all endless.
So we gave a name called tree to that form.
Yes.
We don't know what that is.
No.
And now we say that's the tree, and everyone accepts it as a tree. But we really don't know what
conventional,
that is.
Arbitrary and conventional.
So,
but we got to live with it.
So let's talk also about, we have 52 seconds. We have 50 seconds to answer this
10
question.
minutes, okay. You're giving me 50
We
seconds.
talk about order of time, beautiful book written by the quantum physicist. Is there an order in Vedanta? You alluded to it, the name, Nama, Rupa, there's an order. We're happy with it. Now you go beneath that order and you say this akar and gati, is movement, and that's all there is.
Right.
Is that important to understand?
Yes, not just understand, experience.
Experience.
Yeah. If you live 24 hours a day, I mean just 24 hours, one day.
Yes.
You live in that consciousness where you see only gati and akar. It will change you forever. You'll never be the same person again. Just one day, if you live only in that consciousness that you are perceiving only gati and akar, you'll be changed forever. And that's another order, subtler order.
Yes.
And there are several other subtler orders which you have to experience one by one.
So the Sanskrit term for that, I think, is anukram. I think Shankaracharya called it anukram. Kram, beneath, the order beneath, and then there's the order beneath.
Yes.
So,
Ananta Anukram.
Ananta Anukram.
He referred to it Ananta Anukram.
Yes.
Because for every subtle order, there is a subtler order.
So I think we have kind of just barely begun, introducing ourselves to this brilliant work of fictionalized account of a mystic, a Vedanti. But I think it should be called realistic fiction. It is not really fiction. And those who are interested in a very simple, lucid understanding of Vedanta and spirituality I recommend it highly. This after years of trying to understand philosophy, this is something that goes to a different order and kind of unifies it all. I would like to open this to questioning from the audience, and I'm sorry if I miss anyone, but you raised your hand first, so please speak, tell your name, and just shoot the question. No introductions.
Hi, my name is Ina Kapoor, and my question is, you said the knower should remove the name and the personality, but my knowing or learning, the lenses that I use is through my personality. So how I interpret learning would be different from how she does. So how do I remove that to even learn Vedanta?
Right. So learning is one thing, Vedanta is another. So learning is a mechanism, it's a process. There is a learner and there is a process of learning. And what is learning? Essentially, it is acquiring information about something which is not known to you. The moment that learning happens, you consider it known to you. Now that's another matter that it's still not the known. But, no. But Vedanta is when you try to, this is a very subtle point you brought up in the question. Try to understand that there comes a point where you see through the whole game of learning and knowing. This whole thing that I know and therefore I am drops away from me because I know nothing. All I know is what I am seeing, because as I was telling him, that little band of visible light. Once you begin to question your own knowledge, and in Vedanta that's one of the most important steps that one takes towards the realization, is to understand within oneself that all knowledge is finally futile. Please don't mix categories. Knowledge of the world is not futile. If you're living in this world, you need knowledge. You can't, you'll go crazy without it. So there is in Sanskrit we call it the Vyavharik category. Practical, pragmatic, practical. And then there is an order that we call subjective, pratibhasik. And then there is an order called adhyatmic, spiritual. So what Vedanta is true in the spiritual and the subjective. If we bring that into the practical, there'll be confusion.
Like the person who just killed himself and he's not what you think he is, if you have been watching the news. So actually the process is what we call unlearning. You start unlearning.
Yes, unlearning.
So this is a deep subject, but I'm going to move. Ma'am, you were I think the second, so please go ahead.
You have a left side too.
I can't see that.
Good morning, sir. My name is Srishti. My question to you is, there is a knower, which you talked about, and then there is an I, right? Who I am, not what I am, who I am. But the difference between both of them is the experiences which I have had from day one, and the experiences, my personality, whatever experiences I've encountered, which have molded and shaped into who I am. So what steps do I need to take? What should be my actions if I really want to know the knower inside me and detach myself from the Maya which we just talked about?
So the first thing that you have said very correctly is to settle down with your personality, the outer personality, and make that fully functional in the world that you live in. But then for any truly intelligent human being, there will inevitably come a moment in life when you will ask questions like, is this all? Is this all what my life is all about? Because somewhere, sooner or later, we all begin to realize that we are simply repeating our experiences. There is not one thing that you're experiencing today which you have not already experienced before. So when that hits you hard, that all my existence is simply repetitive phenomena, then that urge to go beyond it all arises in you. That is there something beyond it? The moment you have asked that question, you have come to the threshold of Vedanta.
There's much more to it, but I'm going to jump Srishti. The lady right behind Srishti.
Yes, sir. अभी हम वेदांत के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. अब जो ये दुनिया हम इवॉल्व हुए हैं, तो अभी किस तरीके से मतलब हमको
जैसे वेदांती जो कहेगा कि आप मेले में बैठे हो, तो इवोल्यूशन हो गया मेले के जैसा। पर हम में से एक जना बात कर रहा है वेदांत की, फिर आपने एक ने बात करी, फिर उसके बाद 10 जने बात करेंगे वेदांत की। तो जब 10 के बाद 1000 होंगे, 1000 के बाद जब सारी दुनिया वेदांती बन जाएगी, तो उसके आगे क्या?
जब आप वेदांती बन जाओगे तो आपको ये रियलाइजेशन होगा कि आपके सिवा और कोई है ही नहीं। बोध होगा आपको, इसको इनफैक्ट आत्मबोध
हो जाएगा
कि एग्जिस्टेंस इज ओनली वन, रियलिटी इज ओनली वन। वो ना आप हो ना मैं हूं, पर वो है जो सब में, आप में और हम में जानता है। द नो, जो बोध है, जो द बोध, आप में जो बोध है फाइनली, और मुझ में जो वो बोध सिर्फ एक है, एंड दैट इज कॉस्मिक। तो जिस दिन आप उस बोध का बोध हो गया आपको, माय हिंदी इज अ बिट चैलेंज,
आत्मबोध हो गया,
हाँ आत्मबोध हो गया, सो देन योर आईज ओपन अप।
अभी वो मिलेगा। अभी रुक जाओ, अभी थोड़ी देर रुक जाओ, अभी मिल जाएगा। मैं आई हैव टू। मैम आई एम सॉरी बट वी let's take that outside
some other time.
Let's come to that. Sir, you wanted to ask a question? Yes sir.
Well, thank you so much for such a brilliant session. My question is that if Vedanta is the way of looking at the world, and we all become, partly the question was asked by the lady, so I will take it further that if we see that oneness in all of us, then why are we killing each other?
Because we don't see that oneness yet.
Yeah, so then if you go to the sadhu sannyasi tradition of this country, most of the ashrams are doing nothing to counter the kind of violence that the society is facing. So how does Vedanta reconcile with Saghan Karma as advised by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita? Because there is a very big danger here.
So in a very simple way, the Gita tells you exactly what is to be. The Gita does not give you its fullness of Gyan before it first brings you to the consciousness of the one within you. So Vedanta too is that. First realize the self within, Atma Bodh. Then karma begins. Till then it's not really karma.
So Vedanta is not against fighting for your dharma, by the way. So your misunderstanding of Vedanta with passiveness, that is a big problem in our understanding. The moment you have the Atma Bodh, it's not that you're going to sit in a corner. You can stand up like Arjun and fight. I'm going to come back to that very important thing she said. Atma Bodh hua tha, wo chala gaya, to kaise pakadun?
So if you're bringing that question up, Atma Bodh is not a one-time event. एक बार नहीं होता है. Atma Bodh is a lifelong process. एक बार जब खुल गया, आप जब you're referring to the opening of a window for the first time, first glimpse. From that point on, you have to change your outer existence. The other thing is called distraction, and we call it distraction in English, which means what? Which means you're unable to concentrate. So the moment that first opening happens, that's the time when you have to gather all your energies, all your consciousness to one single point, which is to keep looking for the window to open again.
Samagra Drishti. I know, ma'am, we can't have a dialogue. I just try to help you. There are so many questions. We've run out of time. We are at point 0. Since we are at point 0, Makaranji, 3 seconds.
Thank you, Partho, for your book as well as this session. My question is very simple. How important is love, even romantic love, in this journey of self-realization? Thank you.
You have 10 seconds.
I have 10 seconds. The book itself is it's a love story. When I'm asked to describe the book in a single phrase, it's a love story. but it's a love story happening at a spiritual plane. It's a love story between Ahana, the mystic, and Krishna. So love is the final rasa of Vedanta, of Atmagyan. If this entire, why, I mean, okay, since he's saying 10 seconds, I don't know how to answer this, but if that immeasurable one reality manifests itself in a myriad names and forms, there must be a reason for it. Why? So the moment you ask that question, you begin to get the answer. The big why, it's love. It is love that manifests as this universe. But it's a love that I cannot know or experience till I have touched the soul within, the knower within.
There are so many questions, and I would love to go on timelessly, and we are at a timeless point, but I suggest that as soon as we get down, you can jump on him and ask him every question you have had. I love this session. Thank you. I thank the audience.
Thank you.
Dhanyavad.